Farmajo.
And let's be honest, Farmajo.
Minister Farmajo now has gone to the...
At the government, Farmajo's government, Farmajo himself is an American citizen.
And Farmajo...
And Farmoja.
Yes. They don't like Kenya.
Yes.
And let's be honest, Farmajo and Hassan Hari are not Somali. One is from America, the other one is from Norway.
Yes.
And Norway is giving him support to injure us, to injure Uganda. I speak because my Ugandan troops are in Mogadishu. I have a right to defend those younger men. If they die there because of Somali nationalism, we are not going to spare ourselves and keep here and have orphans and widows back in our country. We have a right to tell this government straight. If the diplomats can't do it, I'm not a diplomat.
Let us continue working on our self-national interest, but we also give the other country to work on their self-interest, but with constraint. But I think what is lacking in terms of Somalia is that constraint. And Farmajo, as I said before, is using this stuff and is using this kind of spat so that he can consolidate the other clans in Somalia for his own re-election, for his own personal interest.
All right, Honorable Aiden.
In a way to build a buffer zone between Kenya using the state of Jubaland and the new government in Somalia under Farmoja has been on a track. You know, they are going through elections.
Yes.
And Jubaland was the last one because it was contentious. You remember what happened in western state, southwestern, where Ethiopia had interest.
Yes.
So the Ethiopian troops worked together and they removed the strongest candidate. But now here Kenya has their person, the president of Jubaland, Madobe, is actually, we can say Jubaland is a friendly state to Kenya. It's a state of Somalia, but friendly to Kenya. It's our buffer zone.
Yes.
So what happened is that the federal government, the central government, has decided to exercise its power. You know, the president, and I read the note verbal by the government of Kenya. It captures the truth that it is internal politics, the politics of survival, because the elections are around the corner. We are having in April the parliamentary, then this end of this year, we should be having a new president because Somalis have never voted in president twice. So he's trying to...
I, first of all, sit in the defense committee in parliament. And Farmajo has been spoiling for a confrontation with Kenya. And Kenya has acted in extreme restraint in this matter. First of all, like my colleague did say, there are many things that you must look. What is happening in the region? What's happening in Somalia? Somalia is going for an election. And Farmajo now seems to be itching for a confrontation, maybe to use it for his own political reasons. If you realize there's been a gang, the former presidents have ganged up against him. It's a very formidable team.
The region of Norway that are paying for Somalia. If you look at who's bought the blocks, you will see some people from the West. Then you look at the government, Farmajo's government. Farmajo himself is an American citizen. You've got his prime minister who's Norwegian. Well, has he finished? Until it has finished, he's still an American citizen. And as long as he's continuing to roll out the mandate of the Americans, then what does it matter? Then the prime minister, where is he from? He's Norwegian. You've got a foreign minister who's British. The entire cabinet is made up of these people who did not fight for Somalia, but they came back to take power, home guards, as Kipchumba would call them. Number two, you have to ask the question of how sinister is it that a country that has nearly 10 times the coastline of Kenya wants the tiny little space comparatively that Kenya has. And that should tell you this is a process where our finger is being put in our noses to see whether we nosebleed or not. Now, what is Kenya's course of action? Number one, I honestly believe that Kenya needs to deploy its military in that area so that the ICJ knows that they're not going to make a ruling that is detrimental to the country. We are not going to sit by and become a landlocked country. We're not going to sit by and watch Al-Shabaab ships be as close to the Lamu port that we are about to finish as they want it to be. We're not going to sit by and see that our sovereignty is being touched. And let's not forget.
Just not come to terms with each other. no matter how much they have talked. Because the president of Somalia wants the troops and the military of Kenya to leave Jubaland. And we in Kenya want to leave. But we're not going to leave on his terms. Because our citizens here have paid the price for people coming from that place to make life miserable for us here. And this is why our armed forces went in there. So if Mr. Farmajo wants us to leave, he needs to guarantee the security of Somalia and prove to the government of Kenya that he has the security of this country in his hands. And he does not have it. The second thing, Debal, is also we ought to hold accountable our fellow there in Jubaland, Mr. Madobe, because Mr. Madobe also cannot become intransigent. He's the relationship between him and Mr. Farmajo now has gone to the dogs, if I could use that word. And that is in the direct interest of the national security of our country. Because if the relationships in the political relationships in Somalia are being shredded because of the conduct of President Farmajo, that is in our national security interest, because the Shabab are quite happy today to see the Somali armed forces fight in Mandera with the citizens.
Farmajo has made this a re-election agenda for him. So he's got an election in 2020, and the reason why he's sticking to his guns is he wants to show his population that he can take on Kenya and win. So the reason he's unwilling to negotiate is not because he doesn't know what the right thing is, but because he's made this a campaign issue, a re-election issue for him. And for Kenya to win, we must address that issue.